Welcome to our introductory episode, our issue 0, if you will, of Tales from the Gutters, a show where two completely normal comic book fans deep dive on weird comics and the weirdos that make them. We will be exploring the history, context, and crazy concepts tackled by sequential art through some of the medium's most obscure and oddball creations. But first, we figured it would be good to introduce ourselves, your hosts, and tell you all where we're coming from as comic fans and what we're looking forward to covering.
Nice. If you were scared away by sequential art, this show is not for you. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Isaac. I'm 6 foot, 0 inches. I'm employed. I look good for my 30s. Lots of people tell me that. I'm really fucking single, guys. So why I'm doing this. A little bit about backgrounds, and this will loop back in my background. This will loop back into kind of why we decided to do this. I'm from a small town, big family. The big thing you have to know about my takes about comic books is that I was homeschooled until the age of 10. There's a lot of different flavors of homeschooling. None of those flavors are very good. But I got lucky. I got the compulsive reading homeschooling. I did not read a comic book straight through until I was in college. But once I found it, it scratched an itch. And since that time, I've had, between my laptop and phone, at least 7 tabs open with a comic book on them at all times. Getting this out of the way, I don't know jack shit about the comic industry side. I am a criminally careless consumer of comic media. Until I started talking to my fine co-host, Ethan, I never once spent 2 seconds trying to remember an artist or an author's name. There's a couple major comic runs I've really been into. There's a couple superheroes that I would rate over other superheroes. Mostly, I knock around, I pick up whatever looks interesting. My personal preference, I'm usually drawn to some spooky, moody type work, but my major contribution to this project we're starting is I will read anything at all.
Hell yeah. So, I'm Ethan. I've been an annoying comic book nerd as long as I can remember. It was a fate passed down to me like a family curse through hand-me-downs from my cousins and my uncles. I was hooked on comics before phonics, exacerbated by Fox Kids reruns and the burgeoning superhero summer blockbuster. I was soon pulling floppies from the 50-cent or dollar long box every chance I could. Free comic book day would always fall near my birthday, which felt like destiny growing up. I spent most of my childhood in my local comic shop and most of my adolescence in the parking lot behind it. My first exposure to a committed relationship was between me, my pull list, and the comic clerk. So comics have always been there for me at every stage of my life, and like a serious relationship are the things that bring me so much joy while also hurting me and my pockets the most. I really enjoy diving into the industry context and the history of comics, so this podcast is a great excuse for me to call my geeky-ass tendencies research, and I will try to refrain from as many actuallys as possible. So, Isaac, what are the comics that got you into the medium?
That is a great question. First of all, I want to say a reason this podcast is going to work too well is I also grew up pulling floppies in a parking lot, but completely unrelated to comic books. Like I said before, it wasn't something that I really found until college. Just knocking around Western Kentucky University, the public library there, and found the comic book section and just dove right in. I am sorry, but you can't rewrite the past. Sandman did help get the ball rolling. That was a big one. Pulled up a lot of manga as well, if that's okay to admit that here. That might be a conversation for another day. Like I said, Sandman, the first Court of Owls Batman run, and a comic called God Hates Astronauts. Those were all probably the same afternoon. And ever since then, my tastes have not gotten any less eclectic.
Fuck yeah. Shout out to the local library, man, because you gotta get people reading any way you can. But yeah, thanks for biting the Sandman bullet for me, because only one of us has a Morpheus tattoo that is now an inner source of turmoil that is very hard to face or admit many times.
You're gonna say I'm a big World War II fan. That's why. Is that worse?
It's just an interesting point in history, you know.
Oh my god,
just,
the scale, the drama.
But for me, I have to credit some of the goats, like Bone, right? Shouting out the local library again, Scholastic Book Fairs, and Claremont X-Men, even back to like giant-sized Ween and Cockrum, which I had like a mini reprint of that I'd carry to school with me. All the pages were all fucked up, which is probably fucked because it's a collector's item now, I would imagine. Also shouting out to some manga with Junji Ito's Uzumaki, which marked a cultural shift in my middle school. That was like all the rage at one point.
What fucking school did you go to? What the fuck?
It was there were a lot of Asians there. I will say that it was a very Asian heavy leaning demographic.
Jesus.
And I do have to mention Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, Making Comics, that whole series, which really instilled a love for the technical and like theoretical aspects of the art form and gave me plenty of ammo for debating any like comics are stupid assholes on the playground growing up. So why do you think you like reading comics, Isaac? What is it about them specifically?
The thing about comic books for me, it's a medium that fits absolutely perfectly into my alternating inability to pay attention and compulsion to obsess over details. I like surreal stories, big human themes, and strange ideas. And for better or worse, the way I want that delivered to me is through engaging pictures. It's just, like I said before, it's an itch that nothing else scratches. I can zone in on one comic, and if it's a good one, take it apart all day, or I can just read like 9 in a sitting.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I mean, as like an annoying comic book kid who always was very defensive of the medium growing up, I used to tell other kids that like comics were movies with balls. Like, there's something about like the magic tricks that artists pull that is unique to comics, right? And like the serialization of mainstream stuff lends itself to these like character driven soap operas that you can follow your entire life. And comics are a place where you're allowed to be weird, and the weirder the better, almost, so that you can tackle these big ideas in these very fun and engaging ways. And that's what I love about comics.
What for this podcast qualifies as what I think we're going to call gutter pools, the kind of comics that we are going to be reading? The rule for this one is whatever the hell we choose, honestly. We've already, the ideas that we have for the ones we're going to cover are from a lot of different places. These are the big trends that, naturally I think we're just going to be sticking to. Something that's weird for some reason. A lot of stuff falls under the definition of weird, especially in comic culture, but there's a lot of comic podcasts out there. I think what we want to do is we want to focus on just some of the stranger stuff that's out there. Another big thing for us is we want to talk about the creators, something that's got enough to go off of where we can kind of get an idea of who this person was, what they believed in. That'll lead us to our third point, which is comic books that are on some level trying to do something, like have an intention behind them. Whether or not it's something we agree with, the weirder the comic, honestly, I think agreeing is something that we'll try to, be upfront about. We will not agree with some of these comics, some of the suggestions that Ethan have sent. I don't think I should legally have it recorded anywhere. I condone anything in there. What about you? Anything else?
I do want to say that like part of I think why we love comics and why it's so fun to look at their creators is because comics as a medium is very limited in terms of the people working on them. Like unless you're on like a big two or like superhero run, there's very little oversight, for better or worse, right? A lot of comic book creators come out of like indies and doing something where either they're writing and drawing it all themselves, or they're working with a small team. And I feel like it's really interesting to see the kind of products that come out of a very like auteur driven medium in general. And I think that's one thing we do want to highlight in terms of the industry is like how much hard work it takes to make a comic book and how much weird stuff is made because it's just like one or two people that are just shooting for the moon and like going off the wall with their ideas.
Whether it's self-produced or you do have that financial backing of the big powerhouse publishers, it always is a type of miracle for a comic book to make its way out into the world. So even if we don't happen to be a big fan of the comics we're going to be covering, always appreciate that someone actually made this exist. Why are we doing this? For me, there's a quote I really like. All pedagogical art is bad art, but all good art is pedagogical. You say pedagogical? Pedagogical. I will read trash all day. But beyond just being something that keeps me occupied, I've had some really, really great and I would say meaningful experiences reading comic books. And I think for me, the moments where it's really meant something to me is reading something where the style and the substance combine, and you get a feeling or a message from the creator, something that they really care about. Probably all art is about communication on some level. We're not a philosophy podcast. We have to get this out of the way now. I don't know how much we'll get into this in the long term, but figuring out what are they trying to say, and almost more importantly, how well are they saying it? That is a process I'm absolutely addicted to. I just like talking about it. And I'm excited to do it with someone with as weird and bizarre a palette as my friend here. Ethan here. He is the first other adult in my entire life who actually reads comic books. Before I met him, had about 2 decades of opinions in the bank, and it's been a blast talking about some of my favorite books. He has a giant, very big scope read on the culture, business side of this medium. I wasn't very interested in that stuff to begin with, but slowly am learning to appreciate. More importantly for me, he also has very weird taste. One of the first comic books, a bizarre thing. Oh, you read comic books. Yeah, what do you like? The first thing out of Ethan's mouth. Oh, have you read The Invisibles? And Black Hole. That was the other thing we talked about first. The fact that I had read those was insane, and the fact that you asked that was insane. I think that was the solid base for what happened after that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the first time in my life where I haven't had a comic shop nearby. So when we met, this podcast was really born out of just countless late night convos that started with like, "Yo, have you read this?" And I do really want to recapture that sense of community that was part of why I fell in love with comics in the first place, and hopefully spark an interest for people who are new to comics too. I mean, so much of the best stuff is from the recommendations I got at the checkout counter at a comic book shop, where it's just like, "Oh, you're reading this? Like, you should check out this." Or I remember I was the Hulk guy at my shop for a minute, and
somebody's got to do it.
Immortal Hulk came out, they were like, "Dude, you gotta hop on this run." So if anybody has any recommendations, we are looking to kind of build community around this, people who love comics, and we're just looking for any excuse to talk to people about comics.
Hell
and the
yeah.
weirder the better. The weirder the people or the comics, the better.
Send us your floppy pulls. We want to read them. The type of people that we are going to try to make this podcast for. If you want to listen, happy to have you. Glad you're here. But the audience that we kind of have in mind here, personally, I'm looking forward to chipping away and not knowing anything about the wider world of people who appreciate comic books. But in my role as the resident industry neophyte, I do have to say, I hope we get some people who just like a good story. Maybe you're not super into this medium, but if you have an ear for hearing people talk about interesting stories and the craft behind it, stick around. I think it'll have a lot for you. Also, my little brother, much cooler than me. He has a beard. He's married. Much better taste. I think he's read 3 comic books in his entire life. I think it was a bizarre day one day. He said, "Oh yeah, I picked up that Absolute Batman." I said, "What the hell?" If we can get him to listen non-sympathetically, that'll make this whole project worth it to me.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I really hope our love of comics comes through and people get as excited about this stuff as we are, because I feel like this is an industry and a medium that is a little bit, it's on the upswing a little bit, and like any love we can give to comics or any new fans that we could create from this means a lot to us, and like it makes all those playground beatings feel worth it.
Still trying to win.
Please follow us. I do want to give the caveat that we are new to this, extremely new to the whole podcasting thing. We are working it out and figuring it out as we go along, but we do really care about this stuff, and I hope that we can find more people that do as well. We're gonna be on everywhere you get your podcasts: YouTube, Spotify. You can follow us on socials, Instagram, Blue Sky. We're hoping to get some Substack essays going as well. I do want to shout out some of the creators and like other comics that we are going to be like recommending along with our episodes as well. So I hope that people just keep reading comics, and if you don't already, start.
If you want to hear more of Ethan's cat in the background, we need to know that you're out there listening. Please, the doors are open now. We reserve the right to close them later, but while we're still getting started here, I know it's hard for people on the internet to have an opinion. I know that like you just want to keep it all inside, but please let it out. Let us know what you like, and especially weird recommendations. We're definitely in the market for. Yeah, excited to get this project started, and see you in the gutters.
See you in the gutters.